chosen one, the things that keep repeating in your life do not prove that an invisible force is watching your every step. Often, they reveal that old wounds, habits, and reactions are quietly leading you back to the same familiar paths. I know how confusing this can feel. Each time you begin to recover hope, another difficulty appears. Each time you draw close to an opportunity, an old fear rises again. Each time you want to begin, an inner voice reminds you of previous failures. You look at this pattern and wonder whether you are being deliberately targeted. Archangel Michael, my faithful messenger, protector, and executor of my will, is an image that reminds you to stand firm with courage and awareness. Yet I myself am telling you that true protection does not cause you to live in obsession, distrust everyone, or fear what you cannot see. My protection brings you back to truth, helps you understand the patterns influencing your life, and gives you the strength to choose differently. Perhaps you have experienced many occasions when everything went wrong just before success seemed within reach. You prepared, worked hard, and hoped, yet a hasty decision, an unstable relationship, or a familiar fear caused you to withdraw. It hurt so deeply that you began to feel as though someone knew the exact location of your weakness, and always struck there, but look more deeply. The things that repeatedly seem to know how to find you do not necessarily come from some hidden record. They may arise from responses formed over many years. When you have been abandoned, you become especially sensitive to silence. When you have been betrayed, you may interpret an ordinary delay as evidence that someone is deceiving you. When you have failed publicly, you may postpone a new opportunity because you fear experiencing the same shame again. The past does not possess a mind capable of hunting you, but the false lessons you drew from the past can continue directing your present until you examine them again. I am not saying this to place all responsibility for hardship upon you. Life truly contains injustice, people who may exploit vulnerability, harmful environments, and circumstances beyond your control. You may have been mistreated, manipulated, judged unfairly, or forced to bear the consequences of another person's choices. I am not asking you to deny those realities. Yet I also do not want you to give them so much power that you begin believing every obstacle is a carefully planned attack against you. When you live with the belief that you are constantly being watched, your mind becomes exhausted. You begin searching for danger in every glance, every word, and every coincidence. That fear does not protect you. It weakens your ability to evaluate what is actually happening. If the feeling of being watched or targeted appears frequently, causes you to lose sleep, makes you afraid to leave your home, leads you to distrust those closest to you, or prevents you from carrying out ordinary responsibilities, please reach out to someone trustworthy and seek professional support. You do not need to feel ashamed. When your body becomes exhausted, you seek care. When your mind has remained under pressure for too long, it also needs support. Professional help does not oppose faith. It may be one of the paths I use to lead you back towards safety, reality, and peace. My beloved, the record that needs to be erased is not a mysterious database containing your name and location. It is the list of judgments you have written within yourself. I always fail. I can never change. Everyone will eventually leave me. Whenever something good arrives, it will be taken away. And I do not deserve peace. These sentences have been updated after every setback. One mistake became evidence that you were incapable. One rejection became proof that no one wanted you. One broken relationship became a declaration that you could never be loved. These conclusions make old struggles easier to repeat because they influence the way you choose, react, and see yourself. I want you to erase not the memories themselves, but the false meanings that have attached themselves to those memories. You do not need to forget what happened in order to become free. You only need to stop allowing it to speak on behalf of your future. You can remember that you once failed and still believe that you are capable of learning. You can admit that you made an unwise choice without declaring yourself worthless. You can know that you were once betrayed without treating every new person as a betrayer waiting for an opportunity. When you separate the event from the judgment, the past begins to lose its authority. There are sensitive places within you that need to be recognized rather than concealed. When a word of correction makes you angrier than the situation requires, ask what part of you has been touched. When someone responds slowly and you immediately fear abandonment, pause before reacting. When an opportunity appears, but you discover countless reasons to delay, honestly ask whether you are being cautious or simply afraid of failure. When loneliness makes you want to return to someone who repeatedly caused you pain, remember that familiarity is not the same as safety. Each time you clearly recognize an automatic reaction, you regain the power to choose. Transformation does not occur through a single delete button that causes every weakness to disappear overnight. I do not want you to wait for a strange moment and then expect to awaken the next morning as though you had never been wounded. Reactions formed over many years must be reshaped through many new decisions. There will be times when you are still triggered, but instead of acting immediately, you learn to pause. There will be moments when you still hear the voice of self-condemnation, but you no longer believe everything it says. There will be times when you are still afraid, but you no longer allow fear to choose in your place. This is freedom growing within you. Not that the past suddenly disappears, but that it no longer commands you as it once did. Imagine every old habit as a road you have traveled too many times. Because it is familiar, your feet naturally turn toward it when you are tired. The new road will feel more difficult at first. You will need greater awareness, greater patience, and sometimes someone to walk beside you. Yet every time you choose a new response, you make that road clearer. One day, what once required tremendous effort will gradually become a natural choice. You will no longer send a cruel message in the heat of anger. You will learn to rest before reaching exhaustion. You will not borrow money merely to maintain an image. You will not remain in a disrespectful relationship simply because you are afraid of being alone. This is how the old coordinates lose their power. You no longer remain in the places to which they once led you. You may also need to change your environment when that environment continually nourishes what is harmful. You cannot merely pray for peace while continuing to allow people who insult, control, or exploit your weaknesses to enter your life without boundaries. Examine who has access to your time, finances, emotions, and private matters. Not everyone who has known you for a long time understands you deeply. Not everyone who says they love you knows how to treat you respectfully. Boundaries are not walls of hatred. They are doors opened with discernment. Be cautious of people who use fear to keep you listening to them. No one has the right to tell you that a healing process will remain incomplete unless you finish watching a video, read an entire message, or perform some form of engagement. I have not placed your freedom in the hands of content displayed on a screen. My love does not operate like a technical process that can be interrupted simply because you stop watching. You have the right to leave any message that causes panic, places pressure upon you, or makes you feel dependent upon the speaker. What is truly good does not use force to capture your attention. I also do not want you to believe that a single declaration can complete the entire work of transformation. Words can begin a decision, but a new life is built through action. You may say that you are no longer afraid, but you still need to learn how to face what frightens you. You may declare that you have forgiven, but you may still need time to establish boundaries and heal. You may decide not to repeat the past, but you must still build new habits that allow that decision to endure. I value sincere words, but I lead you into a journey deeper than words alone. Begin by identifying the recurring patterns in your life. Write down the situations that often cause you to react strongly. Look back to when those reactions began. Ask what belief lies beneath them. Do you believe every disagreement means that you will be abandoned? Do you view asking for help as weakness? Do you believe your value depends upon always being useful? Do you only feel safe when you control everything? When a belief is brought into the light, you can finally examine whether it is truly accurate. Then choose a new response. If you usually remain silent until you explode, practice speaking earlier with calm words. If you often spend money to soothe emotion, create a period of waiting before making a purchase. If you constantly pursue emotionally distant people, return your attention to relationships where care flows in both directions. If fear of mistakes causes you to delay everything, divide the task into smaller steps and complete the first one. These choices may not appear dramatic, but they are what change the direction of your life. Past failures may still be used as evidence against you, but look at them with more mature eyes. A failure may contain useful information. It can show you what was not adequately prepared, which method no longer works, and what you still need to learn. When you use failure only to humiliate yourself, you lose the lesson. When you treat it as information for adjustment, it becomes a teacher. You do not need to enjoy what happened, but you can recover wisdom from it. Forgive yourself for falling into the same cycle more than once. When a pattern was formed early in life, you may not be able to break it through willpower alone in a single day. There were times when you knew what was right, but still chose what was familiar, and afterward you felt deeply disappointed in yourself. Do not use that disappointment as a reason to surrender. Examine what made you vulnerable to returning. Exhaustion, loneliness, stress, lack of support, or a particular environment. When you understand the conditions that weaken you, you can prepare more wisely. I also invite you to forgive those who contributed to these wounds. Forgiveness does not mean denying the consequences or immediately restoring trust. It means refusing to allow them to continue living within your thoughts. As an authoritative voice, you can say, "What they did was wrong, but it no longer determines how I see myself." You can hope that they change while still maintaining distance. You can release revenge while continuing to seek justice. This is mercy, accompanied by wisdom. My beloved, you may have inherited burdens you did not create, but you are not required to pass them on to those who come after you. From the time you were very young, you entered a family that already carried stories, fears, ways of loving, ways of arguing, and ways of responding to hardship that had been formed before you arrived. Some good things supported you, But there were also patterns that left you feeling unsettled without understanding why. Archangel Michael, my faithful messenger, protector, and executor of my will, is an image reminding you that courage is not only shown when confronting an external danger. Sometimes, the greatest courage is looking directly at what has existed within a family for generations, and declaring that the cycle will stop with you. Yet, I myself am leading you, not through fear of secret powers, but through the light of truth, compassion, and new choices. You did not choose where you were born. You did not choose what the adults around you believed, how they reacted under stress, or which wounds they never healed. Perhaps you grew up in a home where money was always discussed with panic, causing you to enter adulthood, believing that tomorrow could collapse at any moment. Perhaps no one in your family spoke openly about emotion, so you learned to remain silent until pain turned into anger. Perhaps love was often combined with control, closeness was mixed with guilt, and setting boundaries was treated as betrayal. These things can pass from one generation to another, not as mysterious codes that you are powerless to resist, but as ways of thinking and behaving repeated for so long that everyone begins to regard them as normal. Someone before you may have lived through deprivation, and therefore learned to hold everything tightly through fear. Someone may have been abandoned and became cold before anyone else had the opportunity to leave them. Someone may have been humiliated and used harsh words to maintain control. Someone may never have been taught how to apologize, and therefore only knew how to deny, blame, or withdraw into silence. These people may have wounded you, yet they may also have once been children, carrying wounds that no one helped them name. Recognizing this does not excuse harmful behavior. It simply helps you understand that many painful things did not begin with you, and therefore they do not need to become your identity. I do not want you to look at your family with contempt. When you discover an unhealthy pattern, do not immediately treat everyone who came before you as a source of darkness. They may have been doing the best they could with the knowledge, opportunities, and strength available to them. Some were never shown another way. Some had to survive extremely difficult circumstances, yet compassion for them does not require you to repeat everything they did. You can honor your roots while choosing a different road. You can appreciate what was good while refusing to continue ways of living that keep harming others. What you inherited may influence you, but it does not possess absolute authority over your future. You may have learned to avoid conflict through silence, but you can learn to speak truth calmly. You may have grown up among people who constantly borrowed and spent without a plan, but you can learn responsible financial management. You may have witnessed love being used as control, but you can build relationships founded upon freedom and respect. You may have heard words that caused you to feel worthless, but you do not need to continue repeating those words to yourself or to your future children. Change does not begin when you find someone to blame. It begins when you become honest enough to recognize what is still living within the way you think and respond. Perhaps you become anxious whenever someone does not respond immediately because silence once signaled conflict. Perhaps you feel guilty when resting because your family believed that a person's worth depended entirely upon how much they accomplished. Perhaps you constantly try to rescue everyone because, as a child, you were forced to carry the emotional responsibilities of adults. These reactions do not make you a bad person. They were once ways you adapted in order to survive. But what protected you during childhood may become a burden in adulthood. I invite you to observe yourself with compassion. When a powerful reaction appears, do not immediately condemn yourself. Pause and ask, what within me is afraid? Which memory has been awakened? What old belief is directing this choice? Do you believe that you must please everyone in order to be loved? Do you assume that disagreement will always lead to separation? Do you think that unless you control everything, you will not be safe? When you bring these beliefs into the light, they can no longer operate entirely in secret. You do not need to believe that an invisible power is monitoring your family line through hidden records. That fear will only make you more suspicious, watchful, and exhausted. What needs to be recognized are the very real effects of family history. The way stress is transmitted through behavior, the way children learn by observing adults, and the way an unhealed wound can create choices that produce further wounds. When you understand this process, you are no longer powerless before a nameless curse. You become someone capable of learning, receiving help, and choosing another direction. If your family history includes serious issues such as violence, addiction, controlling behavior, long-term debt, mental illness, or painful secrets, you do not need to face them alone. Seek support from qualified professionals, trustworthy mentors, or a safe community. I do not demand that you overcome everything through willpower. Some deeply rooted patterns require time, understanding, and companionship. Seeking help does not make you weaker. It shows that you are courageous enough to stop hiding what needs healing. You also do not need an urgent ritual performed during a single night to seal every door to the past. Lasting freedom is usually built through many small decisions. Every time you choose conversation instead of punishing silence, a cycle is being broken. Every time you apologize without defending yourself, a tradition of blame comes to an end. Every time you establish a boundary without hatred, you create a new way of loving. Every time you manage money wisely, care for your health, or rest when needed, you rewrite what your family once believed could never change. Sometimes you will stumble and react in ways that resemble those who came before you. Do not assume that every effort has failed. A pattern built over many years does not disappear after a single decision. You may know what is right and still return to what is familiar when you are tired, afraid, or lonely. When that happens, recognize it as soon as possible, accept responsibility, and correct your direction. Do not use one step backward as proof that you cannot change. You are not returning to the beginning. You are continuing with greater understanding. Perhaps you are afraid that you will become like the person who hurt you. That fear may cause you to control yourself excessively or continually question your motives. Be at peace. The fact that some of your reactions resemble those of your family does not mean you are destined to repeat the entire story. What matters is that you are becoming aware, learning, and accepting responsibility. Those who refuse to change usually deny that a problem exists. You are looking directly at it, and that honesty has already opened a new path. I also want you to distinguish between responsibility and guilt. You are not responsible for what happened before you were born. You do not need to carry shame on behalf of your parents, grandparents, or anyone else. Yet you are responsible for what you do with what you received. If you recognize that a behavior is harmful and still continue repeating it, then you need to change. If you know that a fear is controlling you, but refuse to seek support, It may affect those around you. Responsibility is not punishment. It is the authority you have been given to change direction. Forgive those who came before you as much as you are presently able, but do not force yourself to do so quickly. Forgiveness is a process, especially when wounds are deep and consequences remain. You do not need to call what was wrong right. You do not need to return to a dangerous environment to prove that you have forgiven. You can release the desire for revenge, hope that they change, and still maintain necessary distance. Compassion does not eliminate boundaries. It allows boundaries to be established, without the poison of hatred. Forgive yourself for the times when you repeated what you once hated. Perhaps you spoke in the same way as someone who hurt you, became controlling because you feared loss, or withdrew into silence because you did not know how to express yourself. Do not deny these things, but do not view yourself as beyond healing. Apologize where an apology is needed, repair what can still be repaired, and learn a new way of responding. Regret only has value when it leads to transformation. When it only causes self-hatred, it continues feeding the very cycle you desire to end. I see within you the ability to become the first person who chooses differently. The first to speak openly about emotion, without shame. The first not to use money as a means of control. The first to teach children that mistakes can be corrected without humiliation. The first to understand that rest is not laziness. The first to say, "I love you, but this cannot continue." These choices may appear small, but they can change the atmosphere of an entire family. Do not expect everyone to celebrate when you change. Some people have become accustomed to your former role. The one who always gives in, always solves every problem, always remains silent, or always accepts unacceptable behavior. When you establish boundaries, they may call you selfish. When you stop hiding a problem, they may accuse you of creating conflict. When you refuse to participate in a familiar argument, they may attempt to pull you back into it. You do not need to answer with anger. Remain consistent. Your transformation may make others uncomfortable, but their discomfort does not automatically mean that you are wrong. However, you must also remain humble. In your desire to break with the past, you may sometimes become rigid and believe that your way is the only correct way. Continue listening. Not every tradition is harmful. Not every word of correction is an attempt at control. And not everyone who disagrees with you wants to pull you down. Preserve good qualities such as loyalty, sacrifice, hospitality, and caring for one another. But remove the ways those values have been used to conceal injustice. You do not need to destroy an entire house in order to repair one wall. You need discernment to recognize what should remain and what must change. I want you to build a legacy that is not founded upon fear. A family where people can tell the truth without being humiliated. A home where children are taught responsibility without being defined by their mistakes. A relationship where love does not mean control. A way of living where money is managed through wisdom rather than panic or display. A community where help is offered respectfully without creating dependency. This is how multi-generational burdens are transformed into sources of wisdom. You do not need to know every story of your ancestors before you begin. Some things have been forgotten, and some events will never be fully explained. Do not allow the desire to discover every cause to delay the changes needed in the present. You already possess enough information to recognize what is harming you and others. Begin there. You do not need to decode the entire past before you have permission to build a healthier future. If you have children or younger people watching you, remember that they learn not only from what you teach, but also from how you live. When you admit that you were wrong, they learn that making a mistake does not destroy a person's worth. When you care for your health, they learn that the body deserves respect. When you refuse to insult others, while angry, they learn that anger does not give permission for cruelty. When you seek support, they learn that strength does not mean living alone. A new legacy is written through ordinary moments such as these. I do not promise that the past will never hurt you again. A word, a family gathering, or a familiar situation may awaken old emotions. Yet from this point forward, you can recognize them sooner. You can breathe slowly, leave the room when necessary, call someone trustworthy, or delay your response until you become calm. You no longer need to place the steering wheel into the hands of memory. This is freedom maturing within you. My beloved, do not live as though a sentence passed down through generations is hanging over your head. You are not a powerless victim of history. You stand at the meeting point between what has been handed down and what will be handed forward. You cannot change the pages already written, but you can decide what will be used to write the next lines. Choose honesty instead of concealment, peace instead of control, discipline instead of disorder, and compassion instead of humiliation. Release bitterness toward those who did not know how to live more wisely, but do not continue granting authority to harmful behavior. Forgive yourself, but do not use mercy as a reason to postpone change. Be grateful for the good things your family gave you: endurance, hospitality, a strong work ethic, and the ability to stand beside one another in difficult times. Then cleanse these qualities of fear, control, and patterns that no longer bring life. Now return to peace. You do not need to declare that everything has disappeared overnight. You only need to decide that today you will not continue a cycle that has caused your family pain. The first step may be a conversation, an apology, a boundary, an appointment with a professional, or the beginning of a new habit. Do not underestimate that step. A current that has flowed in one direction for generations can begin changing through one small but steadfast decision. I am with you as you learn how to live again. I do not condemn you. For the things you absorbed before you possessed understanding, I only invite you to enter responsibility through love. Allow Michael to remind you of courage, but allow my words to lead you back to gentleness. You are not fighting against your family. You are fighting so that love within your family will no longer be distorted by fear, shame, and silence. You are not denying your roots. You are helping those roots produce a new and healthier branch. Lift your head, my beloved. The things that have passed through many generations may be powerful, but they are not more powerful than the capacity for awareness, healing, and new choices that I have placed within you. Live in such a way that those who come after you will not need to carry the burdens you carried. Give them a home where truth exists without humiliation, discipline exists without cruelty, and love exists without control. Then one day, when you look back, you will understand that the great ending did not occur through mysterious noise, but through a life that patiently continued choosing what was good. This is how the past is honored without being permitted to rule, how forgiveness meets responsibility, and how a family begins walking toward a future that is more peaceful, compassionate, and secure.